chapter 19. And the second lot came out for Simeon, even for the tribe of the children of Simeon, according to their families. And their inheritance was in the midst of the inheritance of the children of Judah. And they had for their inheritance Beersheba, with the Sheba, and with Malada, and Hazar-shul, and Baalah, and Ezem, and El-Talad, and Bethul, and Hormah, and Ziklag, and Beth-Markabath, and Hazar-Susa, and Beth-Lebath, and Sheraim, 13 cities with their villages. Ain, Ramon, and Ether, and Ashan, 4 cities with their villages. And the villages that were round about these cities to Baalath-beer, as far as Ramah of the south, this is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Simeon according to their families. And out of the allotment of the children of Judah was the inheritance of the children of Simeon, for the portion of the children of Judah was too much for them. Therefore the children of Simeon had inheritance in the midst of their inheritance. And the third lot came up for the children of Zebulun according to their families, and to the border of their inheritance was unto Sered, and their border went up westward, even to Maralah, and reached Dabbesheth, and it reached to the brook that is before Jokneam. And it turned from Sered eastward toward the sunrising unto the border of Chisloth-Tabor, and it went out to Debrath, and went up to Japhia. And from there it passed along eastward to Gath-Hepher, to Ethgazim, and went out at Ramon Methor unto Nea. And the border turned about it on the north to Hanathon, and the goings out thereof were at the valley of Iphtahel, and Katah, and Nahalah, and Shimron, and Edalah, and Bethlehem, and 12 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the children of Zebulun according to their families, these cities with their villages. The fourth lot came out for Issachar, even for the children of Issachar according to their families. And their border was Jezreel, and Chesulloth, and Shunem, and Hepharim, and Shion, and Anahareth, and Rabith, and Kishion, and Ebez, and Remeth, and Engannon, and Enhada, and Beth Pazez. And the border reached to Tabor, and Shahizim, and Beth Shemesh, and the goings out of their border were at the Jordan, 16 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Issachar, according to their families, the cities with their villages. And the fifth lot came out for the tribe of the children of Asher, according to their families. And the border was Helkath, and Haley, and Beaton, and Akshaph, and Elam, Melech, and Amad, and Mishal. And it reached to Carmel westward, and to Shihor-Libnath, and it turned toward the sunrising to Beth-Dagon, and reached to Zebulun, and to the valley of Iphtahel, northward at Beth-Emek, and Nael, and it went out to Kabul on the left hand, and Ebron, and Rehob, and Haman, and Canaan, even to the great Zidon. And the border turned to Ramal, and to the fortified city of Tyre, and the border turned to Hosa, and the goings out thereof were at the sea from Habel to Achzib. Umah also, and Ephect, and Rehob, 22 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Asher, according to their families, these cities with their villages. The sixth lot came out to the children of Naphtali, even for the children of Naphtali, according to their families. And their border was from Heleph, from Elon, Bezah, Ananim, and Adami, Nekeb, and Jebneel, and unto Lakum, and the goings out thereof were at the Jordan. And the border turned westward to Aznoth-Tabor, and went out from there to Hukok, and it reached to Zebulun on the south, and it reached to Asher on the west, and to Judah at the Jordan toward the sunrising. And the fortified cities were Ziddim, Zer, and Hamath, and Rakath, and Chinnereth, and Adamah, and Ramah, and Hazor, and Iron, and Migdal El, and Horam, and Beth Anath, and Beth Shemesh, 19 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Naphtali, according to their families, the cities with their villages. And the seventh lot came out for the tribe of the children of Dan, according to their families. And the border of their inheritance was Zorah, and Eshtaol, and Ir-Shemesh, and Shelevim, and Ajalon, and Ithla, and Elon, and Timnah, and Ekron, and Eltekah, and Gibbethon, and Baalath, and Jehud, and Benabarak, and Gath-Rimmon, and Meyarkon, and Rakan, and the border over against Joppa. And the border of the children of Dan was too strait for them. So the children of Dan went up and fought against Leshem, and took it, and smote it with the edge of the sword, and possessed it, and dwelt therein, and called Leshem Dan, after the name of Dan their father. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Dan, according to their families, these cities with their villages. And when they had made an end of distributing the land for inheritance by the borders thereof, the children of Israel gave an inheritance to Joshua the son of Nun in the midst of them. According to the commandment of the Lord, they gave him the city which he asked, even Timnath-Serah, in the hill country of Ephraim, and he built the city and dwelt therein. These are the inheritance which Eleazar the priest, and Joshua the son of Nun, and the heads of the fathers' houses of the tribes of the children of Israel, distributed for inheritance by lot in Shiloh, before the Lord, at the door of the tent of the meeting. So they made an end of dividing the land. All right, let's go back up to verse 1. And the second lot came out for Simeon, even the tribe of the children of Simeon, according to their families and their inheritance, which was in the midst of the inheritance of the children of Judah. And where we're dividing the land up. We're at the tent of the meeting place, and they've returned from scouting the land out, and they've with the book that they've made, and they've charted out all the land where it to be divided at. And we've done handed Benjamin out his little portion, and in the last chapter, and that brings us to verse 1 of this chapter, and we're handing out, starting with Simeon, the second lot. And these were the seven lots that was yet to be divided when the children of Israel had basically stopped the major wars that was going on in that area, and had began to settle down, so to speak. And verse 2, and they had for an inheritance Beersheba with Sheba and Moladah. And what we're going to do is start listing these cities that Simeon would have inherited. So we're not going to go through all the cities, but what we did was I went through and I translate each one of these names of these cities, because every time I get a list like this and I see there's 3 in the list, I'm going to grab up my pencil and paper, and I'm going to start translating. I use the Strongs to take these words mostly back to their root meaning so we can get the true understanding out of it. And we would find that the first 2 verses of the inheritance, starting at verse 2 and including verse 3 and verse 4, we have the cities of Beersheba, Sheba, and Moladah, and that would translate as the well of sevenfold oath, including the 7, give birth to. And then we would go to verse 3, Hazar-Shual, Baalah, and Izam, and this would translate to the village of the hollow hand has become old, and many remembered. And we would go to verse 4, and we would translate El-Talad and Bethul and Hormon into God's children, those that dwell in God, completely destroy. And what they completely destroy, it gives this in the intent of the word of Hormah, is that which is a devoted thing. So those 3 verses would read together, and we would get, well, a sevenfold oath, including the 7, give birth to the village of the hollow hand. It has become old and many membered. God's children, those that dwell in God, completely destroy this devoted thing. Okay, now we're going to move on down, and we're going to move down here to where Zebulun inherits, and that's going to be at the verse 10. And the third lot came out to the children of Zebulun according to their families, and the border of their inheritance was unto Sered. And we will drop down to verse 11, and we're going to get the name of the first three cities. The border went up westward, even from Mar-Allah, and reached to Dabasheth, and reached to the brook that is before Jokneam. And we will translate that into much trembling in the elevated place. The people lament. Okay, and then we're going to go on down to verse 12, and we would read there the name of the three cities: Chisloth, Tabor, Dabroth, and Japhia. And actually there we have four. We're going to include Sarid, which we had mentioned by itself earlier. So Sarid being first, and we would translate that as that which remains is broken. The word speaks warning and shines forth. Okay, so together they would read, there's much trembling in the elevated place, or the exalted place. The people lament. That which remains is broken. The word speaks warning and shines forth. So we're going to move on now down to verse 18. Verse 17 saying the fourth lot came out for Issachar, and this would be the fourth lot. Verse 18 containing the first three towns we would translate: Jezreel, Chesulloth, and Shunem. And this would translate, the mighty one scatters his seed. They are made foolish in the place of the double rest, or the place where the sleep is doubled. And verse 19 would translate, two wells of confusion bring devastation, groaning and fear. And the two would read together, the mighty one has scattered his seed. They are made foolish in the place of much rest, or double rest. The two wells of confusion bring devastation. There's groaning and fear. Let's move on down. We're going to move on down here to verse 25. Verse 22 states, or 24 states, that, and the fifth lot came out to the tribe of Asher according to their families. Verse 25, and their border was Helkath, and Haley, and Bitan, and Akshah, and we would translate that into the smooth place, ornate jewelry, the womb of sorcery. And this smooth place, it makes it clear in the intent and the understanding that this smooth is through flattery and through much flattering words. And the ornate jewelry is in the form of a necklace. So this is the intent of the meanings of these words. So we would have to translate that as the smooth place, worn smooth by the flattering words, which they wear as jewelry around their neck, a necklace, so to speak, is the womb of sorcery. Verse 26, we have Alamelech, Amad, and Michel reached to Carmel, and Shihor Libnath. And this one would translate, the great tree of the king that rules. The people endure perpetual darkness, begging for the garden land. Darkness is made light. So we find that the two would read together, this place with flattering words, which they wear for their jewelry, is the womb of sorcery, and the great tree of the king, which rules the people who endure perpetual darkness, who are begging for the garden land. Now darkness is made light. Okay, we're going to move on down to verse 33. Verse 32 stating that the sixth lot came out for the children of Naphtali, and this would be the first two verses we would read from Naphtali. We see the first one, verse 33, contains Halef, Elon Bezer Aninim, Adami, Nekeb, Yabneel, and Lukum, and the goings out thereof are at the Jordan. So we would translate this one verse there's a changing. The great tree is taken away. The man of earth is set in his hole. The mighty one establishes the barrier. That is the waters that descend. And this would be the waters coming down. This great tree we just mentioned in the last translation. This great tree of the one that rules over. And this being the one that is set in the hole or the pit. The hole can be called a pit. All right, we're going to move on to verse 41. 40, stating that the seventh lot came out for the tribe of the children of Dan according to their families. And 41 being the first three cities that we would get, Zorah, Eshtaol, and Ir-Shemesh. And 40, we're going to include 42 as well as the place, or 42 would be Sher, Labin, Aijalon, and Ethla. And this would translate, the hornets inquire, the city of the sun god, the place of the hollow hand, the place made strong by twisting, he hangs. And these hornets were we have to remember from Deuteronomy, God said, I will send hornets in to drive these people out. And these are the hornets they're talking about. And these hornets are inquiring in the city of the sun god, this city of that men worship idolatry. This is the place of the hollow hand, that which cannot hold anything. The place made strong by twisting, and this is the twisting of the word. He hangs, because we know that is what happens to all the kings that rule the cities where the children of Israel go in to destroy them. And this would be the prophecies of the end time. We would find the prophets will be dwelling on these things. I didn't translate all these verses. I leave some for you to do. You will find that there is more hidden there than what meets the eye. I'm just trying to call to attention the fact that there are things still hidden within that have yet to be seeked out. And we'll move to verse 47. And the border of the children of Dan was too strait for them, so the children of Dan went up and fought against Leshem, and took it and smote it to the edge of the sword. So Dan wasn't given enough inheritance. It was a little too small for them, so they went ahead and did some more fighting and took some more land. And we're going to find out, because the land did not have rest, and these wars would be going on for years and years to come, mostly because the children have left these little thorn bushes sprouted all around in the land. And it's actually a nice little briar patch they got going. There's not one land that I don't know of, except for maybe Benjamin, who is well protected in his area, that just doesn't have any trouble within it. And we're going to notice that in the children give Joshua an inheritance in the midst of them, in verse 49, and verse 50, according to the commandment of the Lord, they gave him the city which he asked for. And this is basically the agreement that was made when Joshua took his job. And it was in the hill country we see in Timnath-Serah. So these were the portions that Eliezer and Joshua and the fathers of the tribes, these heads of the houses that was set over each tribe, did agree on in the meeting place in Shiloh. They had set the tent up there, and they did agree this was the landmarks that were established. Some have some skepticism to them and are still of debate today. You won't find a map that is 100% accurate. They do not exist. All of them have some form of error. All right, we're going to move on. Chapter 20.